What if they threw a Republican electoral landslide and nobody came? I'm Scott Ott, author of Laughing at Obama Volume 1, and this time on Trifecta, what's it going to take to make sure Republican principles permeate the 112th Congress? Here to examine that question from our Denver bureau, where he hosts Hair of the Dog and the Weekend Blogs from his powerful, fully transistorized Dick Tracy two-way wrist transponder, the vodka pundit, Stephen Green, and from the PJTV Life Star, it's like Darth Vader's Death Star, only shiny and pure, our host of Afterburner and National Security Review, it's Bill Whittle. Well, gentlemen, in recent days, as the president struggles to maintain an approval rating, that's a non-negative whole integer, and Democrats in Congress bathe in a sewer of corruption, I'm wondering if conservatives and other Republicans understand that the Democrats are not simply going to huff glue and die on November 2nd. Bill, is it just me, or do you also detect a bit of premature triumphalism on the right?
There are two things here that need to be discussed, and God bless you, Scott, because you're doing exactly what needs to be done. You are scaring people into action when they need to be scared. On the one hand, the Republican leadership, the entrenched Republican leadership, which is our strategy is, hey, we're not Democrats, we're just 90% of Democrats. Isn't that better? We're just 10% better than they are. Those people don't get any of this. They're as bad as the Democrats. The people entrenched in the RNC don't get it at all. But there is a danger when everybody says, oh, the Democrats are going to get a shellacking coming November. Well, they don't get a shellacking because the press predicts they're going to get a shellacking. You get a shellacking because you get up and go to the poll. But really, the way they really get what's coming to them is you get up and you go to the polls and you bring 2 or 3 or 4 people with you. I said bring 5. If you can do that, we are going to give these people the kind of warm reception that they've earned so karmically. You know, they're begging for it. And we need to deliver it, but we need to get 5 friends to help us do it.
That's so much gentler than whip these people out of their boots. I like that, Bill. Hey, Steve, in the past year, we've seen a kind and gentle stampede of Tea Party activists into the electoral arena. The rhetoric is bold, informed by our founding fathers. It's philosophically invigorating, but do they understand the nuts and bolts of what it takes to win at the polls?
First, I'd just like to say I'm not sure about the whole integer thing, but I'm positive that the president's approval number is always an irrational number. Okay, that said, there was a story making the rounds a couple months back. It was written anonymously for Playboy magazine, but we do know it was by some K Street insider, GOP, who was working for the Tea Party people. And to hear him tell it, the Tea Partiers, they mean well, but they have no idea how to win elections, the nuts and bolts of it, and they need people like him to pay people like him to get the job done in November. Well, you know, maybe what Anonymous says is all true. Just because it's self-serving doesn't mean it isn't true. But let's turn that back around for a sec. The establishment GOP, the K Street guys, sure, they know how to win elections, you know, when they're not enjoying an 80-seat deficit in the House and 9-seat deficit in the Senate and not a single friend of the White House, but they sure know how to win. But they don't know how to govern. We've seen it again and again. We need the fresh blood in there.
Bill, let me just come out and say it. Campaigning for office is like being on a football team that practices all day, every day, for an entire year in order to play in one winner-take-all game. And we've heard all the talk about how high the stakes are this year, but are we hearing enough about what Vince Lombardi used to call the grind?
That's the question, isn't it? And by the way, let me play the poll numbers game. I predict that after 2 more years, President Obama's poll numbers will consist of imaginary numbers. You make an excellent point, Scott. There's 2 things going on. There's some good news. And the good news is that I have talked to any number of good, solid, conservative people who generally feel that politics really isn't their business, honestly. They've ignored this thing for 40 years. They've seen what ignoring it for 40 years has brought them. And I have never known so many people in my lives who, I know more Americans who are looking forward to November 2nd than are looking forward to December 25th. I can tell you that with a lot of confidence. People are itching. They are absolutely at the end of the leash yapping, waiting to get to those polls to show these bastards who's in charge. But yes, this is not enough. ground organizations, get out the vote organizations, phone banks. For God's sakes, folks, if you really want to win this thing, find your local campaign, your local, the closest one you have, state representative, federal representative, maybe it's just a city commissioner. Operate the phone banks. Go door to door. We've got to do this. If we don't do this by ballots, we are in real trouble.
Steve, it's been said that winning is simple, really. All you have to do is all the things that most people vigorously avoid and passionately hate. I mean, how do you get folks motivated to go to a call center like Bill's saying, or to go door to door with a candidate's team?
You know, I worked my first campaign back in 1984. 15 years old, I was working for Jack Buechner, who was trying to win against an incumbent Democrat in Missouri's, I think, 2nd District. I was a volunteer, and my job consisted of, I called it stuffing envelopes and pushing doorbells in the St. Louis summer heat, I might add. And yeah, stuffing envelopes is boring, and walking across the burbs all week is pretty miserable. And you know what? Jack didn't even win that year. But it was so worth it. He came so close, and 2 years later, he did win. But you know what? The work itself is rewarding. It really is. You meet great people, like-minded people. You're doing something important. That gets left out. And it's never been more important than it is right now. So yeah, you know, put in 20 bucks, 10 bucks, 5 bucks, whatever in the kitty whenever a candidate you like, you know, anywhere in the country has a money bomb. But for your local candidate, just like Bill was saying, stuff some envelopes, ring some doorbells. That's how you win.
Bill, perhaps I'm being a little too hard on our viewers. I mean, after all, isn't it enough to be angry and frustrated to, you know, listen to Beck and Hannity or watch 6 hours of Fox News daily? I mean, what more can we ask of people who have already blogged and tweeted and Facebooked their philosophy around the world and back?
The simple truth of that is that somebody who watches 5 hours of Glenn Beck a day or 5 hours of Fox News, somebody who has their own blog, somebody who has a TV show called Trifecta, all of this stuff is utterly, completely, and totally irrelevant if it does not come down to somebody going into a booth and punching a little dot with a little ink pen. It just doesn't matter. It's absolutely pointless. A person who does none of these things but gets out and vote is worth more than somebody who does all of this stuff and doesn't. It's just that simple. It's really just that simple.
Yeah. Bill Whittle is at least the medulla within the mastermind that spawned DeclarationEntertainment.com, and he hosts Afterburner and National Security Review, 2 programs so valuable that I think you'll feel like you're ripping us off when you subscribe to PJTV for just $5 a month. Steve, last year when I ran for office, you actually contributed money to my campaign. Now, you could have purchased some cool geek toys with that money or paid for several months of blog hosting at vodkapundit.com. Why do you sacrifice your cash to help other people get elected?
Sacrifice? Who said anything about any sacrifice? Money you send to a candidate you believe in, that's an investment. It's an investment in your future, it's an investment in your country, and hopefully it's an investment in your own liberty. And you know what else? Not every investment pays off, but right now, this election, it's just 3 months away. 3 months is the only shot we have to stop this machine from finally, permanently making us all into wards of the state. And that's got to be worth whatever you can afford to give, whatever you can afford to invest. Really does.
Steve Green's Hair of the Dog and the Weekend blogs save you so much time and aggravation that you'll want to triple your monthly PJTV subscription price out of gratitude. And wait till you see what you get if you do. Just click the subscribe button up there, or the link. You know, with all the wonder of Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and Drudge and freerepublic.com, talk radio and blogging, and most of all, PJTV.com, it's tempting to think that we've entered a new era where battles are won by remotely piloted political predator drones from 30,000 feet, a time when face-to-face, door-to-door, and phone call work are obsolete. Don't believe it. Former House Speaker Tip O'Neill used to say all politics are local, but he wasn't quite right. All politics are personal. To win, you have to do what you probably fear the most. You have to meet strangers, talk to them, ask them to commit, to give, to work, to vote. You have to follow up and make sure that they get to the polls. Do you really want to restore this great republic? Is it worth your best efforts, your personal sacrifice to preserve this bastion of liberty? I'm not asking you to cross a treacherous, ice-choked river in the dark and then march 9 miles through a blizzard with your bleeding feet swaddled in burlap to face the world's most feared mercenaries. That's been done for you already by Washington's men at Trenton. Now it's your turn to make some small sacrifice to authenticate your principles. Contact your local Republican committee or your favorite candidate and just say, I want to help you to grind it out until the election day, whatever it takes. Go ahead, and I'll see you in the winner's circle. For Bill Whittle, Steve Green, and the entire Trifecta crew at PJTV, I'm Scott Ott.